we don't have a growth problem in the advice industry. We've got a capacity problem,
Right.
and we don't have a demand issue. Demand is exploding.
All right, welcome everyone to a new episode, our latest episode of the Advisor Upside Show. My name's Sean. I'm executive editor here at the Daily Upside. And with us is my co-host, John Manganera. Before we get kicked off, just a little housekeeping. You can find us on any of your podcast platforms, so please subscribe, like us, rate us, review us. You could reach us at podcast@thedailyupside.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to have the advisors community get involved. Tell us what's working, what topics you like, what's not working, what we can improve. And if you have thoughts or topics for us to discuss, please shoot us a line. We'd love to hear from you. Today, we have a super exciting, interesting guest that I've been interviewing for better part of a decade now. So I'm happy to reconnect with her. And John, why don't you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, I'm joined today by Dani Fava, who's the Chief Strategy Officer at Carson Group. And as folks listening may well know, she's had a very interesting career in the wealth management space, having moved through several, very influential, important firms in the space. And she landed at Carson Group about 2 years ago. She's working very closely with their CEO, Bert White, who's sort of taken over the reins there as the second generation of leadership. Very impressive growth story, to be frank. The firm's really growing organically and inorganically. We're going to talk about that, but we're also bringing Dani on just to share her personal experiences about what it's like to navigate the wealth management industry, what it's like to move into positions of leadership, and sort of what her experience has been as an influential person in the wealth management industry. So we've got a lot to cover, Sean. Why don't we jump into it?
Welcome, Dani. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Sean. John, it's so good to be here and be back with you guys.
Really appreciate you joining us here on the podcast and sharing your expertise.
I remember covering when I was on doing the Fintech beat and covering you and some of your colleagues, and tech adoption is just always such a hard thing to measure. I mean, you can get the biggest, shiniest tools, right? But to get the advisors to actually use it in an efficient way that gets into their workflow and that feels comfortable for them was always sort of I don't want to say the unspoken, but the lesser focus on aspect of when firms are building tech stacks or thinking about buying new products or whatever. It's like, yeah, you can buy it, but how do you actually motivate advisors to fit it in?
I actually think we've hit a critical sort of tipping point in our industry for tech adoption. And this is something like we don't talk a lot about, but I think we should start talking about it because we're working with artificial intelligence now. And artificial intelligence, the way you interact with it is through natural language. You are the interface now. You're not learning a new interface. You're not learning a new piece of technology that speaks a different language, that has a bunch of different, tabs you've got to click through. And because of that, I believe, we've seen an incredibly different outcome, Sean, in terms of tech adoption. And I'll tell you the first piece of AI that we launched at Carson, this was going back to maybe the beginning of last year, even the end of 24, the first thing we launched was our client meeting assistance, right? Which is Zox. We use Zox for that piece of software. We brought Zox on, and I remember doing like a budgeting exercise, and you have to say, how much do you think we're going to spend on this? And I had to figure out, well, what percent of advisors do you think is going to adopt this? And you pick a percentage, and you say, historically, 50% of advisors might adopt it. 3 months after launching Zox, we had 100% adoption. Every single advisor had adopted Zox at Carson. And I paused and I said, my gosh, not only did I get the budget dead wrong, sorry guys, sorry finance team, but I had to think about this. What was different about this piece of technology versus others in the past? And it was so clear that the value that this technology was giving to advisors was so clear and so immediate and so big that advisors couldn't help it. They couldn't wait to adopt it, right? And we had results from our Carson advisors that told us we're saving 8 hours a week just by using Zox, just by having a piece of software not only capture our meeting notes, summarize them for us, get it ready for a client email follow-up. Zox also takes tasks during the talk and notes them down and moves them directly into the CRM. And they said that was 8 hours a week of work. And I'm like, okay, so not only is this technology super easy to use, but the value is just immediate and it's large and it's measurable. And that, I think we've reached a tipping point because we've seen similar adoption for every other AI tool that we've launched since then. So I actually think we're living in a different world. I think inertia is kind of
Wow.
behind us. And fingers crossed that that is true, but we've seen real evidence of a shift there.
Danny, the last time we were speaking, Bert White, the president of the company, was with us, and he said something that I would love for you to unpack for us, which is that he said, I wouldn't want to be a platform in this industry that just stores data. If your primary value proposition as a software provider in 2026 is that you store data, you're in a difficult position. Could you unpack that for us and what that means for Carson and some of your peers and competitors? It's a big question, I know.
Yeah, and I think Bert, our CEO, is exactly right. If you're a software company that does anything like stores data for the purpose of organizing it or creating data visualization, you're going to have a really, an uphill battle for the foreseeable future because what we've learned and what we've deployed very quickly at Carson is that we can show data and display data in a generative way, right? So generative AI is what ChatGPT introduced to us. And it's the ability for this intelligence to kind of create data and answer questions with data in any format possible, right? Whether that be text or a graph or a document or a presentation, and generative AI or a UI for that matter in HTML. Generative AI can create that for us. Right. So what Carson's been able to do, since we're in a really unique position because we have a very strong data warehouse and data governance policy and what's called a semantic layer, which is kind of like a data dictionary. It's how to use data. We had all of that in place and ready to go. It's kind of one of the reasons I joined Carson a little over 2 years ago was because I knew I could see. I've been working with AI and machine learning, Sean, as you know, way back to my TD Ameritrade days. So I've been working with this stuff for about 12 years now. And I saw in Carson the foundation of what was really important to kind of capitalize on this AI evolution. And now we're able to give advisors on top of that data, we're able to give them these generative solutions. So an advisor can do anything like, hey, create a PowerPoint presentation for this prospect that I'm bringing in and really focus on these tax management strategies that we've been deploying. And our AI can go back and generate that a really branded, comprehensive, presentation for a prospect in minutes. And it's really fascinating what we're able to do for our advisors who are now reporting saving up to 15 hours per week with generative AI kind of creating these things for them. They're doing everything from meeting prep to quick questions about their clients, like, hey, just tell me the most important things I need to talk to John about, to PowerPoint presentations, to even creating them personalized web pages. Like, think about that. Like, they can spin up a personalized HTML page for a client. So when the client comes in, it looks like you've built them their own website. It's like, it's so incredible the things our Carson advisors are able to do that they weren't able to do anything like that, even with vendor technology, right? And then you think about software. So John, this is like a super long answer to your question. You
Wow.
think about like software companies who are just doing, storing data and doing data visualization. Like, hey, I'm going to show you a financial plan. Now, not only can we do that, but we can do that in a generative, on demand, branded, and personalized way for your client. Like, how can you compete with that? Right. And so I think that's what Bert meant when he said, Bert had the foresight back when we spoke, John, in March, to know that, this stuff is coming and it's going to be really challenging for some firms in our industry who are doing that stuff as their bread and butter to really compete.
Yeah, he foresaw the SaaS apocalypse, you could
That's
say.
right.
We used to talk about buying versus building a lot of times, but now it almost seems like it's creating, right? I mean, as you're saying, like you can create your own webpage, you can create things through, with certain providers and through AI that, you can create your own tools
Yes.
almost. So what does that kind of look like? I know, I mean, Carson's been doing some of that, but what does that look like in practice where you're kind of just not just buying, but you're actually creating new software?
Yeah, we used to have this debate, buy
Yeah,
versus build, but there's
right.
this new element now, right? And I kind of call it assemble. You called it create. It's
Yeah,
you can create your own thing now with these tools that are at your disposal. And so you kind of don't need to buy or build anymore, right? You need to assemble or create. And Sean, I love that you use the word create because I actually think um, we're going to have new problems in our industry. This is moving so quickly. And the problem or the scarcity is going to be, are we creative enough? Right. And that's really kind of got me thinking lately that, now that you have the ability to create anything you want,
right.
and then can say, well, what do you want to create? And then it's like, well, I don't know. What and so it's now you're gonna have the question like, are we creative enough to
Yeah.
even sort of start assembling these pieces on our own? And that's another great, it's a great problem to have. Like, let's go find some creative people. And like, gosh, there's nobody better than creative people. So I'm just really excited about like how to even answer that question. Or I'm
Yeah.
really excited that that's the problem we're faced with. And that's why we're having so much fun innovating at Carson.
I don't know if there's any particular tools or elements you're excited about bringing to the table, or even just a high level view of where things are heading. It's pretty amazing to think where we could be in another 5 or 10 years.
It's so amazing, and I think the RIA industry is gonna be the biggest benefactor of this AI evolution, and let me tell you why. Advisors have had a capacity problem for the last decade, right? If you look at the Cerulli reports, the number of households an advisor can manage has capped at 110, 111. It barely moves every year. That number doesn't move. And now we're saying, like, hey, we've got these tools that have the potential to double your capacity because you don't have to do the heavy manual things that you used to do. You don't have to do the context switching between systems. You don't have to create presentations for every client anymore. You can double your capacity. And then you look at the other side of the equation, which is the demand, right? The need for advice. So as an advisor's capacity is expanding, so is the need for advice. There are 1,000 millionaires created in this country every day, 350,000 new millionaires per year. Like, we don't have a growth problem in the advice industry. We've got a capacity problem,
Right.
and we don't have a demand issue. Demand is exploding. The need for advice is exploding. And so as we solve the advisor's capacity issues, think about what that does to our enterprise value for RIAs. Enterprise value is going to go, like, we think it's at a ceiling. It's not at a ceiling. We think advisors are going to have to lower their prices over the next couple of years. No, they're probably going to raise their prices because their service, which is human trust and relationship, is going to be at a premium. And the service that they offer is going to be better than it ever was before. I've never been more bullish on our industry. I hope you have me back in another 6 months, John, so we can talk again about how things are going. But this is just a great time to be in the advice industry.
This episode is brought to you by the Retirement Upside. Let's face it, there's nothing simple about retirement planning. When should your clients claim Social Security? How much can they safely withdraw each month from their 401k? What about the right mix of stocks and bonds for a 30-year retirement? Don't even get me started on optimal Roth conversions and inherited IRAs. I could go for hours. We launched the Retirement Upside to bring you the answers to all of these questions and more. We come to you in your inbox every Friday morning with the latest news and expert views affecting your clients as they prepare for and navigate life after work. Subscribe today at thedailyupside.com.
Once again, we're joined this segment by Dani Fava. She's Chief Strategy Officer at Carson Group. For this section, Dani wanted to give a bit of career counseling and maybe help some of our younger listeners or career changers that are maybe new to this industry try and kind of find a foothold. You come with great expertise and background, so you're hoping maybe giving some of your experience working for some of the biggest names in the wealth management industry that you could kind of share a little bit of advice for career, for job seekers, career changers, or people just trying to get a start in this industry. I mean, what are some high level kind of pieces of advice that you might have for some people out there?
Yeah, and in order to answer this question, it's a really important question.
Yeah.
In order to answer this question, I have to give a little bit of context on like how I see the industry changing and what's
Sure.
important now, right?
Yeah.
And um why those changes are happening. So, we Carson works a lot with artificial intelligence and we're becoming agentic. We're starting to really see what's possible, and that's kind of made me realize what's changing in the industry and the skills that it will be important in the future. And what's changing in the industry is that a lot of the skills that we used to highly value in this industry are really becoming automated or more accessible. This industry used to be really heavily um, concentrated around having good math skills and like being great at Excel and spreadsheets and data analysis. And I think that's shifting now because we're outsourcing a lot of that to AI, and really anybody could be great at those skills. And that causes you to sort of ask the question, what skills are important moving into the future? And what would I tell, a group of college students if I was like speaking at a college in terms of why would you enter the financial services space? This is a human business, and the product that we sell in financial advice is trust and a human relationship. That's the product that we sell. And in order to be good at those things, you have to be energetic and trustworthy and actually kind of likable. I
Yeah.
actually think that is a really important skill moving forward. You have to be able to connect with people. And I'm excited about that. I'm really excited about that because it kind of changes the profile of the person who will be successful in our industry. And it makes, people with all kinds of backgrounds and all different kinds of educations and degrees really great candidates for our industry. If you like talking to people, if you like creating content, if you like writing, if you like educating, or if you like entertaining, all of those things are going to become critical skills in our industry because it's all about being able to be memorable, being able to connect with somebody, being able to talk to somebody. And those skills that were kind of a little bit, I will say, gate kept, or maybe, historically hard to access, right? Like being super good at math or super good in the markets. Those things shouldn't scare you away from the industry anymore because now we can get that knowledge more accessibly through something like artificial intelligence. So I think I would say a wider net we should cast around who should enter the financial services space because of these changes we're experiencing, a much wider net. And I would actually say like what's really exciting to me is, gosh, the people who are just likable and who can bring other people together, I think those are the people who are going to be successful in our industry, and the profile of our industry is changing like in the best way possible.
You were talking about the soft skills and the people skills, and that could even be, if you extrapolate that to even to just the workforce in general, it might be as AI continues to grow, right? It's going to be the people that do have those human skills that AI can't replicate.
Yeah, and one thing that I think the wealth management industry, and especially like fee-based financial planning and that RIAs bring to the table is also the narrative that they're making a difference in the lives of real people out there. And I think that that resonates with many people who are in the industry right now. But I think that, can particularly resonate with folks who are finishing their college degrees, trying to decide what route they want to take in their life. And I think for a long time, the financial services industry had sort of one character, and I couldn't agree more, Danny. I think it's really changed, and it's a very exciting development. A practical question for you, Danny. How do you gracefully leave a job that you like and enjoy, and leave a team for something that could be even bigger and better? I've had that experience in my life. I might have some ideas, but I'm curious what you would bring to the table.
Like, I think ultimately at everyone's core, we all want to be happy and we all want the people we care about to be happy. And I think transparency is my first piece of advice on like how to leave a job where you're happy, you genuinely like the people, and you just want to pursue a new goal. I've done that. I've done it before. You've done it before, John, maybe even more recently than me. And really, if you've built relationships in your current job, what you want to do is just sit down with the folks who you've got to kind of break up with, right? And you have to say, I'm doing this for me to chase my fulfillment and my purpose. And I think we're, at our core, we're all sort of excited for people to do that. And it's actually kind of inspiring when somebody does it, right? When somebody says, like, I'm leaving, I'm going to chase something that I really believe in and I'm really passionate about and I really think will fulfill me. I think not only will you get buy-in, but you'll inspire somebody along the way to sort of pause and think about, what does it really mean to be fulfilled? Um, and that's great. If you can like inspire people, wow. Like there's nothing that really feels better than that. And that's my advice. Just lead with transparency and truth. And I think you'll be surprised at the kind of support that you'll get leading with that in mind.
Yep. Yeah, leading with transparency is incredibly important. And also, not rushing out the door necessarily. It can be very disruptive to leave a team on which you're a very core person in that like traditional idea of a 2 weeks notice. I think that's a bit antiquated in
Mhm.
2026, but
I was talking to a recruiter a couple of jobs ago, but he did say like the same, I don't want to say grief, but the same process that you go through when you leave, like mental process. Like first you're mad when you're breaking up with them. First you're mad at them. How could they do this to me? And all those different, they go in order. And it's the same exact thing when when you're leaving a job and how your employer is going to feel when you tell them you're leaving. So I thought that was an interesting point, that it really is like kind of like breaking up.
Our industry is so small. We all run in the same circles. We're going to meet
Yeah.
again. We're going to see each other again. If you stay in the same industry, that is definitely true and certainly true for ours. And I have like, gosh, I've been in leadership roles for quite a while and I've had a lot of people, come and go and make changes. And I cannot think of one person who I have ill will toward because they left. I mean, it's like he just it's not part of my DNA anyway, and I think
Yeah.
many leaders would agree with that, and I think, most people just we want the best for each other, and we all understand how small this industry is, and we'll probably end up working together again sometime. One of the best things that happened for my career is, with Schwab buying TD Ameritrade and the TD Ameritrade talent dispersing throughout the industry,
Right.
right?
Right.
It's because we had this real tight knit sort of great culture at TD Ameritrade. And we all respected each other and we really wanted the best for each other. And then all of a sudden, you had this sort of disbursement of talent. And now I look at, I know somebody at every company across the wealth management industry. And
right.
because, we used to be together at TD Ameritrade. And that was a great thing for my career because that network effect that you just create for yourself by having great culture and working well with people is it going to bring you benefit for years to come. So that's something to
Yeah.
keep in mind for younger folks too.
It's great insight. Yeah, I think the numbers of this industry are huge. The amount of wealth that is touched, but the number of people working in it, it's not a faceless army of people. There really is a real network, and for that reason, I think don't burn bridges would be my other piece of advice. I mean, you're going to have a hard time, finding work at other places if you're sort of in the business of making enemies. Most people aren't, of course, but
Yeah.
What message, just a fun one, what message would you share with your younger self as you're starting to get in the industry?
I would tell my younger self that you are smarter than you give yourself credit for. And the people who you think are really, really smart are kind of just like you. I remember being young and being, kind of awestruck by executives. Wow, they must know so much more than me. I shouldn't ask them that question because it's probably a stupid question. And I wish I could go back and say, you're way smarter than you give yourself credit for. And if you see something that you've got a question about or you have an idea, ask it, share it. Do not think that they are so far away from you. They're not. They're not. They've just been in the industry longer. They've just got a different title, but you guys are way closer than you think you are. And your thoughts, your questions, your ideas are so valid and let them be heard. I think that we spend so much time in our industry like doubting ourselves in our careers, doubting ourselves. And it's sort of an exercise in futility. Just like ask the question. It's one of the things I admire about Gen Z. I think that they're a lot more unfiltered than we were when we were coming up in the industry. And I love that about them. And I think that's something that they should continue to do and ask the questions of the executives in the room when you have a chance, give them your ideas. It's something I wish I would have done earlier in my career, and I find myself being very impressed when somebody at Carson who's new, who's a entry level, brings me an idea or a question. I'm just like I'm just impressed with their courage. That's some advice I would give to my younger self, is to do that a little bit more.
I wish I had done that more too, because you do think if you put that like on a pedestal that they have this 2 decades experience, all that, when really they're just like you. And sometimes, especially with newer folks, like you're going to have a different perspective, a different experience that maybe your boss never thought of, and you're bringing it from a different lens and a different generational lens probably as well. So like all of
Yes.
those things are helpful for your boss to hear anyway. I mean, I always tell them, like, there's no stupid questions, like ask away, shoot fire. And especially as a journalist, like you just ask. You don't have to know everything, but you have to ask, and you have to be curious and kind of work your way through it. And so, yeah, I think those are all really, really good insights.
One of my best kept secrets is that I love interns because
Mhm.
they teach me. Like I don't know what's like I don't know things about like technology and social media and like the phrases that are being used out there and how people are thinking now. And I think I get as much out of interns as they get from me. Like that I'm learning from them. And that's why I love having them around. And that's something that I should say more so that they could be more comfortable. But yeah, I'm happy to say it here.
Yeah, that's a great point. Even folks who are, having success in the middle and end of their career, you always have to be humble. You have to be willing to keep learning. There are things that we can learn from, the new folks coming into the industry, even as we sort of teach them. So it's great insight.
It's been a lot of fun for John and I covering and having you on. And thanks again for your time today. We really appreciate it. I know I learned a lot. I hope the listeners did too. I'm sure they did, and would be glad to have you back on, Danny.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, Sean, as expected, that was a very insightful conversation with Danny. I certainly learned a lot. Very cool to hear about all the AI innovation that's happening in the industry. I think one of the things that's going to stick with me most is this idea of just about how tech adoption has accelerated in the industry, and really this idea of inertia and advisors not picking up on the tools that are being sort of put into their hands.
Yep.
According to Danny, that's a story of the past, at least at Carson. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that was one of the takeaways for me too. I hadn't really heard or thought about that, and I do think it's very interesting. We always used to talk about this, as we said, with the tech adoption being one of the unforeseen problems. I guess that's not happening, but I also think just extrapolating that just to different industries. I mean, I think it's going to put a premium, like Danny said, on the human element of all of this, the soft skills, the people skills. When AI kind of commoditizes everything, it's going to somehow maybe bring it full circle and bring it back to really the importance of personality and those soft skills. So a lot of interesting stuff. Going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, 100%. So we'll just close with once again encouraging people to subscribe to the podcast wherever it is they're listening. Give us a review, give us a like. It really helps. Our goal here is to create a community and really give people a platform to kind of share some of the learnings and lessons that we don't really have space or time to get into in the newsletter. So I think this was a perfect example of that, Sean. So, but if you're not already subscribed, head over to the website. We have the flagship Daily Upside newsletter. We have the industry focused publications, the Advisor Upside, ETF Upside, and Retirement Upside. Really, encourage everybody to subscribe to those. If you subscribe to all of them, you'll get a very holistic, well-informed, timely view of what's happening in the wealth management industry. So if you want to reach out or get involved, contact us at podcast@thedailyupside.com. If you're interested in, participating in the podcast, throw your hat in the ring. We'd love to have you. So with that, Sean, let's close it out. Hope you have a good one.
Thanks, everybody.